You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better. Put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the third part of What If Deku Enters Sonic the Hedgehog. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Pixel's Fanbook on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. It was the next day and we once again find ourselves in Class 1A as they were having an English lesson with Present Mike. While Udare was a mainly school to produce the next generation of heroes or those who are going to work in something that's related to the hero business, there were still main core classes like English, Maths, Home Eco and other subjects from any normal high school. They still had to be taught, even if you were in the hero course. Now, which of these 4 sentences contains an error? Present Mike, the English teacher, asks as most of the class was focusing on the lesson, while some didn't. This is so boring, those who weren't interested in the lesson thought in unison. What a waste of time, Bakugou thought, not really like the lesson. A pair were having a much different conversation. So, tell me. Why do you have to do this again? Sonic asks. He was out and sitting on Izuku's head with the human speedster, who was busy looking over at his notes, looks up to him, finding this hard to believe from the ghostly hedgehog. Dude, did you not go to school when you were still around? Izuku thought, looking up to the ghostly hedgehog as he floats over his head and flew around in the air with his arms behind his head. I think I did, but that's all I remember. But I don't think that I stayed long. I mean, why would I if I can run at the same speed as you can? Sonic asks as Izuku ponders on it a bit and found some truth in his words. Point made, but I have to do this if I want to be successful in life and become a hero. Those are the rules we live by. Izuku thought with Sonic just snorting as he looks at him before turning back to him and giving the human boy a serious expression. Please, I feel that a hero shouldn't have to go to a school to learn to be one. A hero is a type of person that saves people, regardless of fame, fortune, and recognition. Heroes are the type of people who go out of their way to save people who are in danger, people whom they've never met or known, people whose lives are at risk and know that there is a chance that they could die but still go and do whatever in their power to save the endangered. Risking it all for the greater good. That's what a hero does. Sonic says. Izuku was in awe of Sonic's words. He felt that he was talking from experience. He couldn't help but smile at him. Wow, didn't think you had such thoughts about heroes. Izuku thought as Sonic looks at him, crossing his legs. What can I say? Heroes have interested me since I met you. I feel like that they're the ones you have to look towards when the world is kicking your ass. I mean, everyone should have a bright light in their life, someone to look up to, their own hero. You know what I mean? Sonic asks, Izuku knowing what he meant as he too had people he looks up to. All Might and his father. Yeah, I do. Izuku thought. Midoriya. Izuku snaps out of his conversation with Sonic and him looking to the front of the class to see Present Mike was looking at him with a raised eyebrow and he wasn't the only one as everyone else was looking at him as well. Since I'm seeing you smile like that, I take it you're paying attention to the lesson, correct? Present Mike asks. Izuku sweats a bit. Why yeah, I am. Izuku says. Then can you kindly find the grammar error in these 4 sentences? Present Mike asks. Izuku turns to the board and sees the 4 sentences. He looks at them carefully and instantly spots the wrong one. Sir, you gave us a trick question. There are actually 2 sentences wrong. 3 and 4. Those are the ones that are wrong. There's a wrong noun in sentence 3 and the pronoun in the last one is wrong too. Izuku says as everyone looked at the 2 sentences and saw that he was correct, both of them had grammar errors in them. Oh, at least someone catches that. Nice one, kid. Present Mike yells, giving the green-blue highlight-haired boy a thumbs up as he nods and smiles. No problem. Izuku says, going back to his notes. That was a close one. Sonic sighs, landing back onto Izuku's head as the boy lets out a mental sigh of his own. Tell me about it, Izuku thought with class resuming. A few hours later, it was lunchtime and the students of Udere filled the large cafeteria to have their fill of tasty and affordable meals made by the cook hero. Lunch rush, and the best part of this is that the students can choose what they want to eat, and many took advantage of that, especially Izuku. Currently, the teen was sitting by a table with Ochako and Mina. With the inclusion of Ida and Azui as they ate well, they were trying to, as Ida and Azui were looking at Izuku wholeheartedly devour a pile of chili dogs in a fast pace, while Mina and Ochako were unfazed by this state and ate their meals. How is he doing this? Ida asks, seeing Izuku fit 3 chili glizzies into his mouth in one go and ate them. I think the question is, where does he put them? Tsu asks, questioning how Izuku is still fit as he is while doing this. Ida turns to the 2 other occupants and saw them calmly eating. Does this disturb you two at all? Ida asks. Mina looks up to him. True us, Ida, we grew up with Midori and we've seen him do something small like this in the past. Once he hears the words chili and dog together, nothing will stop him from getting one and eating one. Mina says, turning back to her natto with okra and taking a bite from it. Yup, we've seen worse than this. I think you guys are lucky for not seeing Deku at his worst. Ochako says, before taking a bite from a mochi. He's done something worse than this. What could top this? The 2 thought, shivering at the thought of seeing Izuku eating more chili dogs than what he was currently consuming, the 2 unknowing vowing that they should never take Izuku out to the mall or to a restaurant that makes chili dogs, in the event that he could bankrupt them by eating too much chili dogs. A few more hours later. Afternoon. After the lunch incident, Class 1A were back in their classroom, ready for their next lesson, as the next one was the one most of them were excited for. Why? Well, it's because hero basic training. I am here. A loud and very recognizable voice spoke just outside the door, one that everyone in the class peeked and got excited, especially Izuku, who smiles. The door bursts open. The person who opened it was entering the classroom like a cool hero. All Might, who yells, revealing himself to the class in all of his glory. Whoa, it's really All Might. Kaminari utters, awestruck at the sight of the number 1 hero. Here, at UA, in their classroom. So, the rumor really is true. He is a teacher here. Man, this year's going to be awesome. Kirishima says, grinning while pumping his fist in the air at how exciting this year was going to be. Azui looks at All Might as he took dramatic steps toward the front podium and noticed the outfit he was wearing. Say, isn't he wearing his Silver Age costume? Azui asks, making those who heard her saw that All Might was wearing his. Wow, that's so retro. I'm getting goosebumps just from seeing him. Ojiro says. Man, still can't get over how this is his hero form when we both know how he is the rest of the time. Sonic says. He had popped out of Izuku's head to see what was going on and saw All Might arrive. Yeah, but you've got to admit he is larger than life, right? Izuku thought as Sonic nods, not ever going to lie about it. Yeah, I can say that for sure. Sonic says as he decides to stick around and see what'll happen next. All Might turns to the front of the class and smiles brightly at them. Welcome students to the most important class Udata High has to offer, Heroics 101. Here, you will learn the basics of what it is to be a licensed pro hero and what is right to fight for the name of all goodness and justice. All Might says as the students nod, in understanding what he was talking about. Now, let's get on with the lesson as we will begin the year with, All Might says as he flexes a pose for a little bit until he pulls out a flash card that had battle on it, written in bright, bold colors. Combat battle training. Combat, Bakugou says as he starts to viciously smirk. Now they were talking in his language. Battle training. Izuku says, unintentionally finishing Bakugou's sentence as he flashes a smirk too, not like Balagou's, as he felt excited about what the training could hold. But what are one of the keys to being a hero is looking good. All Might yells, pulling out a small remote and presses on a button, and the wall in front of the row where Izuku sat opened out to reveal 20 briefcases in them, each with the number 1 through 20 on them. These were designed based on your quirk registration forms and the requests you submitted upon your acceptation into UA. All Might says. Awesome. Izuku utters, getting revved up from this. Now, get yourselves suited up and meet me in training ground beta. All Might says. Yes, sir. Faux City B. All Might stood in the middle of a street where a tunnel was in front of him, patiently waiting for the students to come. He then starts hearing footsteps echo out of the tunnel and approaching, causing him to smirk and open his eyes as he starts seeing several silhouettes heading towards the exit of the tunnel. What makes a hero? Is it the way they dress? The way they save someone? No, it's the way they fight for what's right. The way they battle against the unfairness and corruption in the world. The way they go into the fight, the danger without a care for their own well-being just to save what really matters. Take this to heart, young students. You're no longer children, you're no longer just ordinary civilians. You're now heroes in training. All Might says as the members of Class 1A step out of the tunnel, wearing their new hero costumes and all looking proud to be in them. Now, let's get to work, you rookies. All Might says, smirking at them as the students look at each other in their outfits. He then notices one was missing. Where is young Midoriya? All Might asks with everyone looks among themselves for the green-haired boy. Not too long though, footsteps were heard from the tunnel. Here I am. Sorry, I'm late. It took me a while to figure out how to fasten my sneakers. Izuku's voice yells from the tunnel as he runs down to the exit. They turn back to the tunnel to see what Izuku was wearing as he exits the tunnel. He wore a white t-shirt with a blue short-shelved blue and green open hoodie that had a yellow star in a red circle on the back of it with a red and white handkerchief tied around his neck and a pair of goggles with green lenses on the frame. A pair of black and blue shorts, as well as a red utility belt, worn under the shorts, were a pair of black compression shorts. He had on his hands, a pair of white gloves with black palms, and for footwear, he had on white socks and red sneakers with white straps, white soles, and yellow tags. Deku/Midori. Izuku turns and spots Mina and Ochako running toward him, in their hero outfits. Sup gals? Izuku says. Mina looks at his outfit and whistles. Impressed by how well it was put together in its design. Wow, nice costume. Not too flashy but look loose and comfy. Mina says with Ochako nodding. Izuku looks at himself. Yeah, I designed it so I could run at top speed while being loose and move freely. I'm not a fan of spandex. Izuku says, shivering at how uncomfortable and how it should feel to wear spandex to him. He then looks more closely at the girls and their outfits and couldn't lie to himself. They looked great in them. Man, you girls sure look great in them. Izuku says as the girls smiles. Thanks, Midori. I love how they brought out the camo pattern. Especially since I suck at drawing. Mina says. She twirls around to show Izuku all of herself in the costume. He got a good look at her peach which made him blush a bit but he pushed it back. He turns to Ochako and noticed something off with it. But Oka-chan, that I didn't think you'd go for skin-tight outfit. I thought you said you were making it like how 13's suit looks like. Izuku says as Uraraka just sheepishly smiles and rubs the back of her head. Why yeah, but I think they messed up on the bodysuit. It wasn't supposed to be skin-tight. Guess I really should have been more specific in my design. Ochako says. Izuku looks at her and just blushes before looking away from her, in an attempt to hide his blush away from the two. Why yeah, but you do look cute in it. You look good in pink. You've always had. Izuku says, scratching his cheek. Ochako hears his words and couldn't help but have her ever-permeant blush deepens in color from them. Thanks to Kun. Ochako stammer. Mina hears that and sees the two's expression and couldn't help but pout, jealous of not getting a reaction from the green blur. She looks down and sees his sneakers and couldn't help but notice something with them. Say Midori. Why do your sneakers look different from the ones Eri got for you? Mina asks. Izuku looked down at his sneakers and lifts one of his feet up to his face. He knew what she meant. They did look different from the ones they got for him. Oh, well. I sent them here of the support course to add a few modifications to them so they could last longer than most of my other shoes since we all know what happens when I go too fast and wear them for too long. Izuku says, patting the sneaker to get a feel from them. They wear out fast and you burn a hole into them. Ochako says, she and Mina remember all the shoes Izuku had to go through while they grew up and knew that the shoes wouldn't last more than 3 months. The only other pair of sneakers that have survived long was his usual red high tops. It still confused them to this day as to how they've lasted this long compared to the others as nothing was added to them, they were store-bought as a present to him. Yeah. So I asked if they could do a few upgrades to them so they could last. Izuku says, rubbing his hand onto the sneaker before he let the foot go back to the ground. He then taps his feet on the ground as he feels something from the sneakers and frown. But they do feel heavy and tight. I have to fix that before we start with the training. Izuku thought. He looks to his left and notices that Mineta was busying staring at Mina and Ochako, drooling at seeing their figures on display. I love this school. Mineta says, giving a thumbs up to no one in particular. Izuku narrows his eyes at the previous, seeing him lust at his friends. And also find a way to drop Mineta in the Arctic Circle. I mean, no one's gonna notice that he's missing, right? Izuku thought. Sonic was next to him and saw the expression Mineta had and he couldn't hold back his frown. Maybe they won't. But I think they'll notice that he's gone and just maybe there'll be a report on TV of a guy getting discovered, frozen in the Arctic Circle and they could trace it back. I think you should threaten him of that if he continues to be this way. Sonic says with Izuku nodding at the suggestion. Good idea. I'll take him to a corner somewhere, to have a friendly chat. All Might was looking at the students and saw how well most of them looked in their outfits, he then spots Izuku. At least you have your own identity, young Midoriya. Good, for a second there, I was worried you try and mimic my style but I guess I was worried for nothing. All Might thought as he clears his throat, gaining the students' attention. Alright everyone, now that you're ready. It's time for combat training. All Might says, one of the students raises their hand up. Sir, this is one of the foes cities we were in during the entrance exams. Does that mean we'll be conducting urban combat exercises? Ida's voice was heard through the helmet, showing that it was him in the suit. Oh, that's Ida in there. His suit looks awesome. Izuku thought, liking the suit's design. I'll say, it looks like one of those old knights in the Medvilla era. Sonic says. Yeah, but his suit is familiar. Where have I seen something like it before? Izuku thought, pondering about where he had seen something like Ida's suit. Something along the lines there, young Ida. Today, you'll be going 2 steps ahead. In most of the villain battles you all must have seen on TV or online, the majority of the battle take place outdoors. However, statically speaking, run-ins with the most dangerous and dastardly villains take place indoors. Hideouts, backrooms, underground lairs, and tunnels. The truly evil villains hide within the shadows. All Might says with the students there, understanding what he said and taking in his words. Now, for this exercise, you'll be split into teams of heroes and villains. Battling in a 2-on-2 style bout. But, isn't this a little advanced for us? I mean, this is our first lesson. Sue says, poking her chin with her finger. The best training is what you can get from the battlefield. Remember, you can't always battle against robots. In the field, you'll be dealing with actual villains, humans. All Might says. Sir, will you be deciding one who wins? Momo asks, slightly raising her hand up. How much can we hurt the other team? Bakugou grumbles out, looking annoyed about something. Are the losing team gonna get expelled like how Mr. Aizawa threatened us yesterday? Uraraka asks, nervous about that possibility. Will you be forming the teams based on chance or on quirk and individual compatibility? Ida asks, raising his hand up. Does my cape looks fabulous? Aoyama asks, flashing his sparkly cape out all might. Will we be rated on our performance and skills? Todoroki asks. Will the teams be co-ed? Mineta asks, eyes shaking as they were filled with lust. The girls slightly shivered as they all felt a chill go down their spines. Izuku saw that his mentor was struggling to keep up with the questions, not that he could blame him as his classmates were all asking him at once, really not giving him a chance to even answer one. He decides that enough was enough. Hey! Izuku shouts, causing everyone to stop their questions and turn their attention toward him. He sees that he had everyone's attention and, you knock me off of my feet now baby. Ho! Izuku sings while tapping his heel onto the floor before kicking his right leg up and spinning around. Take 2. Hey! Izuku shouts, causing everyone to stop their questions and turn their attention toward him. Calm down everyone. All Might doesn't have super hearing, so give him a chance and ask one at a time. He says with everyone saw that he was right and was embarrassed by their behavior. All Might smiles and nods at Izuku as he lets out a sigh of relief. Thank you young Midoriya. You really saved me there. All Might though, he then clears his throat and everyone turns to him. Young Midoriya is right. For I have more to say, so listen up. All Might shouted. He goes to his utility belt and pulls out notes he had made earlier. Is that a script? Sonic thought as he and Izuku saw the pieces of paper. Yes it is, Izuku thought. The situation is this. The villains have hidden a nuclear missile somewhere in their hideout. The heroes must try and foul their plans. To do that, the good guys must either capture the bad guys or recover the weapon. Likewise, the bad guys can succeed by protecting their payload or capturing the heroes. All Might finished reading the script as Mina looks at him and thought. Sounds like old of the old movies Dad watches. Mina thought. Your time is limited and we'll choose teams by drawing lots. All Might said. Isn't there a better way? Ida asked as Izuku turns to him. Think about it, dude. Heroes often team up with other heroes from other agencies on the spot in battle. So that's the reason we're seeing that here. Izuku said with Ida nodding. Yes, I see. Life is a random series of events. Excuse my rudeness. Ida said while bowing down. No sweat. Now, let's draw teams. All Might said as the students took out the ball to see who were they teaming up. Team A, Midoriya and Jiru. Team B, Shoji and Ida. Team C, Uraraka and Yaoyorozu. Team D, Todoroki and Bakugou. Team E, Ashido and Aoyama. Team F, Sato and Koda. Team G, Kaminari and Mineta. Team H, Fumikage and Azui. Team I, Ojiro and Hagakure. Team J, Siro and Kirishima. And with that, your teams have been made. All Might says as everyone started to go to their teammate, some were fine with who they were paired up with, and others were neutral, considering they haven't known each other that long yet. While a few were not happy. Oh come on. I wanted to be either with Midori or Okachan. Mina whines, flaring her arms around. She was upset that she wasn't with either of her friends and was stuck with a teammate who was currently busy looking at himself in the mirror. Ochako was in a similar mood to her fellow pink warrior. Man, I didn't get Dekun but I guess it's okay I got Yaoyorozu. Ochako thought, slightly happy that she wasn't paired up with Mineta as she and the girls could see that he wasn't the one to be with. Speaking of which. What the hell? I'm stuck with a dude. I wanted to be with the chicks, not partner up with a PP. Mineta rages in his mind. Izuku heads over to his partner and sees her twirl one of her earphones jacks around with her fingers. She sees him coming and turns to him. "So, looks like I got you as a partner, Speedy." Jairu says. "Yep." Izuku says, he then realizes what she called him. "Wait, Speedy. Yeah, I mean you are hell of a fast." "So, I called you Speedy. Why you don't like it?" Jairu asks with one of her eyebrows raised. Izuku just chuckles and scratches the back of his head. "Nah, I'm just surprised. Most people call me Green Blur or in some cases the Green Devil." Izuku says. "Green Devil?" Jairu asks. "Yeah, long story short, during summer vacations into the countryside to visit my grandparents. I'd go and mess with this one old guy who was there and he'd set these traps to get me. He almost never got me but I was just too fast for him. He doesn't know that it was me doing this and thought I was a devil sent to the town to terrorize everything but people assumed that he was crazy, especially since no one saw me run." Izuku says. Jairu looks at him a bit as her mouth was twitching a little before she broke out in laughter. "Wow, that's so funny." Jairu laughs, finding that too funny. Eventually, she calms down and wipes a tear from her eye. "Been loads of fun." Izuku remembers all the fun he had with this man and smiles. "Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do that. But hey, that was then and this is now. So, let's kill this, hardcore style." Izuku says. He then holds his fist out to her. She sees this and knew what he wanted. She holds her fist out and the two bump fists. "Rad." Jairu says. "Alright, now that you all have been paired up. We'll now begin the exercise, but before that, is there anything you'd like to ask?" All Might asks, but no one immediately speaks out, up until Izuku did by raising his hand. "Sir, can I request you a favor?" Izuku says. "Yes, what favor would that be, young Midoriya?" All Might asks. "Can I go for a run?" Izuku asks, causing most of the others, All Might included, to look at him. "Why?" All Might asks. Izuku just points to his sneakers. "I need to break in these new shoes. They feel too tight and heavy, I need to break them in so they can loosen up." Izuku says. All Might thought about this and felt that this was unnecessary. "Alright, you can go for a run but you must stay in the city." All Might says, making Izuku grin. "Thank you so much. I'll be back in a flash. BRB. Izuku yells as he bolts away from the group and starts running around the entire Flax City, indicated by a green and blue blur jetting around the area as he went around streets and scaled up and down various buildings. Before he started to run in a circle around the city's border, he then starts scaling the buildings again before bouncing off them like a possessed bouncy ball. He then turns back to the group before sliding across the road, coming to a complete stop. Izuku stand up and checked on the sneakers to see if they were damaged in any way, but to his surprise, they were completely fine, even better. They felt loose and lighter than before. Okay. They're not smoking or on fire and they're starting to feel loose and good. Man, Mom and Itamo sure know how to pick the right sneakers. Izuku says as he bounces on his feet before walking back to the group. Thanks All Might, I really needed that. Izuku says with the pro nodding to him. No problem. Now then, if there aren't any more questions. Let's start the exercise by throwing, All Might says as he had his hands in the two pools again, this time, to let fate decide which teams will kick things off. Soon though, All Might grab two pools and pulls them out. These guys into the ring. He yells, flashing out the A ball and the D ball to the students. Team A and D were surprised that they'd be up first. Team A will be the heroes while Team D will be the villains. Everyone else can head to the monitoring room to watch the training. All Might says. Yes, sir. The class says they start to move over to the monitor room, leaving the two teams behind with All Might. This early, huh? I didn't think I'd have to face him this early. I thought we'd see each other at the sports festival that's coming up later in the semester. Izuku thought, he really wasn't expecting this too soon into the school year. Sonic appears next to him and places his hand on his chin. Well, looks like fate had other plans for you both. And I can say that he's happy about this. I mean, just look at him. Sonic says, pointing to Bakugou. Izuku turns his eyes to the explosive boy and saw he had an expression of glee and anticipation. Yeah, I think that he'll take this as a chance to finally beat me in a fair fight. The only problem there, Izuku thought before he smirks, that I know everything about his moveset and how he fights, this'll be a piece of cake. Izuku thought. All Might led the teams to a building. Alright bad guys, you can go on in and prep. In 5 minutes the good guy will be let loose and the battle will start. Understand? All Might asks, with the teens nodding. Yes, sir. The four say, Todoroki and Bakugou were heading into the building. And remember young Todoroki and Bakugou. The key to being successful in this challenge is to embody villainy. Think from the perspective of an evildoer. That's how you'll be at your best in the... Yes, sir. Todoroki says as he enters the building. Bakugou stays behind and stares at Izuku with a stern glance before entering the building and following Todoroki up to the top floor. Inside the building, Todoroki and Bakugou were in a room with a large missile in it. Todoroki approaches a large bomb that was in the center of the room. So this is the weapon we must protect. Todoroki said as he knocks on the weapon. Fake of course. Hey. Todoroki turns to see Bakugou, back facing him as the blonde was staring at the door. Do you think that Deku's powerful? Bakugou asked out of nowhere. Huh. Well, of course, I'd think he's powerful. The way he utilizes his speed and bails it to other aspects is impressive. I mean you saw how he threw that ball yesterday. He thought out of the box which I never did think about. Why do you ask? Todoroki asks. I'm just asking. Bakugou yells. Well, there's your answer. But, speed isn't going to help him here. Since my ice is stronger here, I suggest that you don't get in my way, otherwise I'll have to put you down as well. Todoroki says. Bakugou started to shake in place as the threat and that Todoroki said he'd beat Deku before him. That didn't sit well with him as he turns and glared at the dual-colored haired boy. Oh, you can forget that. If anyone's gonna beat that nerd up, it's going to be me. Just guard the F-bomb while I take care of Deku and the ears. Bakugou yells, he starts to storm out of the room. Hey, where are you going? Todoroki asks but Bakugou ignores him and continues to walk into the halls of the building, thinking about Izuku. After all these years of him beating me and everything, Bakugou thought, going back to all the times that Izuku had faced him in anything school-related and other stuff and how he lost to him, every single time. Now, he'd finally got a chance to settle the score between them. In the old-fashioned way. I can finally roast that DMN nerd today in a fight. Bakugou thought, gaining a crazed battle expression on his face. Outside the building. Izuku and Jairu were looking at the building's floor plan to see where the bomb would most likely be in. So, what do you think of the other team, Speedy? Jairu asks, turning to Izuku who. Can't really say much. I know Bakugou and I know him well, he'll come after us first as soon as the battle starts. But Todoroki, Izuku says. What about him? Jairu asks, raising her brow. That's the problem, we don't know much about him. All I know of him is that he's one of the recommended students that got enrolled into UA and that his dad is the number 2 hero, Endeavor. Izuku says. Endeavor? But, we've seen him only use ice in the quirk assessment, his dad has a fire quirk. Jairu says. I know, what I think is that he must have a dual quirk. 2 abilities in one since his hair is 2 different colors and his costume looks to indicate something in link with it. Like opposites. Izuku says, Jairu thought on it a bit before she understood what he was talking about. Opposite, Ice and fire, Gyro says. Izuku nods. Yeah. Izuku says. But yeah, didn't he use it yesterday? And why didn't Mr. Aizawa call him out? He said that he'd expelled anyone who wasn't going full out, and he called you out. Gyro asks with Izuku shrugging his shoulders. I know now. But for now, it ain't my problem, or do I care, if he wants to hold back. It's his problem. Not mine. Makes our jobs easier. Right? Izuku asks as Gyro thought a bit before nodding. Yeah. Gyro says. Not long after that, a siren went off with All Might's voice speaking through a sound system. Alright. The time limit is up. Heroes, you can enter the building. All Might yells the battle had begun. Looks like that's our cue. Izuku says. He stretches his legs. After doing his warm-up, he turns to Gyro. Let's go. Izuku says as the two head toward the building side. Monitor room. The students and All Might were in a room with a big screen with several monitors on it with different angles. Pay attention, kids. Think about what you would do if you were in this situation. All Might says. Yes, sir. The students yell as they watch the monitor. Young Midoriya in this class, you're just another one of my students and not my successor. I wish you luck. All Might thought as he grabs his mic and talked into it and an earpiece. In the building. By one of the windows. A window slide opens and Izuku peeks through it, looking for any sign of life but saw none. Seeing that the close was clear, he jumps through rolling in a ball on the ground, and rolls down the hall until he unfolds himself and hides behind a corner. He whistles and Gyro climbs through the window and sneaks to Izuku. And we're in. Gyro says. Be careful. I can see that there are loads of blind spots in these halls that one of them could be hiding in. Izuku says with Gyro nodding. The two starts to snakingly traverse through one of the halls in search of the stairs. Man, it's too calm in here. Where could they be? Gyro asks. No clue, but let's find out. Think you can plug in one of your earphones into the wall and listen into either of them and see where they could be? Izuku asks. Yeah, good idea. Gyro says. She heads over to the wall next to them and plugs one of her earphones into it, and starts listening. Got anything? Izuku asks. Yeah, I hear someone breathing on the top floor and it sounds like they walking around the room. And we've got someone rushing over to the bottom to us. Gyro says and Izuku instantly knew who it was. Then the one who's heading to us is Bakugou. Meaning that Todoroki is left alone at the bomb. Izuku says. Gyro continues to listen to the wall's vibrations until she hears something happening to the building. Wait, something's happening. Gyro says. Izuku turns back to her. What? What is it? Izuku asks. I'm hearing something spreading throughout the building from where Todoroki might be. Gyro says. Spreading throughout the building? Could he be using his fire? No, that'd be dangerous, considering the bomb would be burned and explode. So Izuku pondered on this until he realizes what was happening. Todoroki was freezing the entire building with his quirk. Gyro. Unplug from the wall. Todoroki's freezing the whole building with his ice. Izuku shouts, and Gyro's eyes widen upon hearing that. She unplugs her jack from the wall, but they hear ice forming near them. They turn and see the ice forming into the hall, closing in on them at great speed. Izuku cursed as he knew that if either of them were to touch the ice now, they get frozen. He quickly grabs Gyro and picks her up, bridal style, much to her surprise and embarrassment, before stops and he starts running forward to the ice. Wait, what are you doing? We'll get us frozen if you run into it. Gyro says. I'm not going to run into it. Instead, I'll. Izuku shouts. Once they got just by the ice, Izuku suddenly jumps over it, rolling in a ball with Gyro as they leap in the air until Izuku unfolds them and slides on the ice until stopped by a wall. Just jump over it. Izuku says. He looks down at Jairu and saw her having a frustrated expression. You okay? Jairu could only nod before speaking. Why yeah, I'm good. Jairu says. She then remembers her current position and her blush deepens in color. Could you let go of me? Izuku sees that he was still holding her in his arms and blushes. He lets her down on her feet again as he turns away. Sorry. Izuku says, scratching his cheek. It's okay. Jairu says. Before Izuku could say something else, he notices something jump from the corner and see Bakugou with his palm open and glowing red. He knew that it was an explosion and he had it aimed at them. Izuku tackled Jairu to the ground, dodging Bakugou's attack as it hit the wall next to them. Watch out! Izuku reacts quickly and tackled Jairu to the ground, barely dodging Bakugou's attack as it hit the wall next to them, filling the hallway with smoke. Izuku and Jairu were slightly back from where Bakugou had landed. Jairu. You okay? Izuku asks. Jairu coughs before responding. Yeah, I am thanks. Jairu asks. She looks at her teammate and notices that Izuku had a burn mark on his cheek while his handkerchief scarf had a burn on it. But are you okay? I'm fine. It's just my cheek and scarf. This is nothing really. Don't worry. Izuku sat, not looking at them as a cracking noise was made. They turned and saw Bakugou emerge from a wall and was to his feet as he clears the smoke away with his arm while glaring at Izuku. What's the matter, Deku? Too afraid to stand up and fight me? Bakugou asks while adding venom to his nickname of Izuku. Izuku snorts as he stands back up and glances at Bakugou with a firm expression. Actually, I knew you'd come for me first. Considering that's how you operate, and I figured that you pull a surprise attack. Izuku says. He wipes the black scorch mark from his cheek and looked at the wall Bakugou blew a small hole into. What's the matter, Bakugou? Your explosions are usually stronger than the one you fired at us. This one is smaller and weaker. Got performance issues? Not that I can really blame ya, since it ain't uncommon with guys. 1 out of 5 have issues performing. If you get what I mean. Izuku smirks. Jairu was struggling and holding back her laughter while Bakugou was getting irate. My rip of a candy cane of a teammate froze the DMN building and dropped the temperature, making it hard for me to sweat properly and blow SHT up. Bakugou says. Izuku nods. So, performance issues? Gotcha. Izuku says, grinning as Bakugou was twitching in rage before he gains a deranged smirk. I'm so going to enjoy killing you, Deku. Bakugou says. Izuku snorts as he pulls the cuff of his right glove down. You can try, cause I'm not going to let you win this fight. Izuku says, getting into his fighting stance. The two stare at one another before they charge at one another with Izuku rolling into his ball form, energy coursing off him as it was starting to form spikes around him while Bakugou had his right hand out, palm open as it was glowing red while steam was forming from it. The battle has began. Die nerd. Bakugou roars as he shoots an explosion at Izuku, who was in the air, in his ball form with the energy spikes forming around him. The explosion connected and filled the hallway with smoke and smog. Bakugou smirks as he thought his attack had landed on Izuku and turns to the smoke, waiting for it to dissipate and reveal his fallen foe. Ha! How do you like that, NGAH? Bakugou was saying but gets interrupted when something collides into his mid-range at high speeds. He felt something was picking at him as he gets sent back flying down the hallway and hitting the wall behind him with the ice on it scattering upon impact. Bakugou slides off the wall and lands on the ground as his head was spinning. What's the matter, Bakugou? Did you have something to say? A voice asks. Bakugou shakes the stars from his head and sees Izuku, standing in front of him where he was previously standing. The green-blue highlighted-haired teen was there, having his arms crossed and looked fine apart from his cheek and handkerchief as they were burned by Bakugou's attack previously. Deku, Bakugou sneers. He slowly started to get back to his feet. Izuku turns around to his teammate. Jairu, now would be a good time to go and look for Todoroki and that bomb. Izuku says. Are you sure? Didn't you need help? Jairu asks. Izuku turns back to Bakugou, who got back on his feet and saw he was glaring at the two with his irises glowing with rage. Izuku turns back to her and smirks as he pulls down the cuffs of his gloves. "Oh, I think I got this covered. Just go and look for him and the bomb and stay hidden. I'll catch up. Now go," Izuku says. Hearing the confidence in his voice, Jairu nods and scurries off in the other direction, in search of Todoroki. "What's wrong, Deku? Scared I'll hurt you in front of your little partner?" Bakugou says as Izuku just laughs and shakes his head at him. "Nah, I just don't want her to be around when I drag your face across the ground," Izuku says, making Bakugou slightly more anger. "I'd like to see you try that," Bakugou says as Izuku just gives him a cheery grin as he processes taking off his hoodie. "Oh, you'll see it," Izuku says, as he starts waving his hoodie at Bakugou as if it were a cape. "Toro! Toro!" he says with a Spanish accent. Bakugou saw red and explodes, figuratively and literally. "DMN, you!" Bakugou yells as he rushes toward Izuku with his quirk as he prepares for a right hook. Izuku didn't do anything but patiently wait for Bakugou to get to him. Once he was close, Izuku couldn't help but smirk. Too easy, Izuku thought. Bakugou as the greenlet effortlessly dodges his attack and lets him fly past, lifting his hoodie into the air. "Ola!" Izuku chants. Seeing Izuku had dodged his attack, Bakugou quickly redirects his hands to be in front of him and fires an explosion which shoots him backward and spins mid-air while pointing out his right hand toward Izuku, intending to blow him up, but Izuku saw this coming a mile away and ducks under the attack as Bakugou fires with it missing of course and grabs hold on to the blonde's right arm, shifting his feet as he steps away. Izuku pulls on Bakugou's arm which throws his balance off. He then places his bottom into Bakugou's hips and bend over, squats, and lifts Bakugou off of the ground, while pulling his arm forward and flips him over his back in the air behind, slamming him into the hard ice-covered concert back first. But Izuku wasn't finished with him just yet. Still holding on to Bakugou's arm, he lifts him off the ground and slams him into the wall beside them and then to the other wall and repeats this actions at high speed until spinning around and lets Bakugou go, sending him flying down the hall and crashes into the wall. Bakugou lets out a pained grunt while spitting a small amount of blood flew out of his mouth when he hits the wall and slides down from it. He wasn't expecting that to happen. He didn't expect Izuku to not be able to only read his moves but counters and retaliate. As he starts pulling himself off the ground while dazed, Izuku spoke. "You're too predictable, even for a guy you've tried to fight over the last 10 years, especially to a speed demon like me. I can read you like an open book, dude. Word of advice, change up your fight style. Otherwise, you'll just lose every time," Izuku says. Bakugou looks at Izuku with an irate expression while the greenlet simply crosses his arms. "So, are you gonna sit there, twiddle your fingers, or are we gonna fight some more?" Izuku asks, smirking at him and crossing his arms across his chest. Bakugou gets onto his knees and spits out some blood that was in his mouth. He then glares at Izuku. "You, bstrd. Think you're really tough, huh?" Bakugou hisses. "Nope, I'm just built different," Izuku says, before giving Bakugou a two-finger salute and grins. "See, yeah," he yells as he jets away from the blonde. Bakugou saw Deku had run away, angering him as he wanted to fight him to show that he was still the best between them. He gets up from the floor and his hands began to light up from the sparks igniting from it. "Deku Deku Deku UFR." Bakugou roars. He starts to rush down the hallway, using his quirk to propel himself. "Don't you dare run from me. Come back here and fight me like a man, you coward," he shouts, searching for the green blur. On an upper level, Izuku was sitting on a flight of stairs as he listened in on Bakugou's rant, while shaking his head. Okay, that'll keep him busy for a while. Now to check up on my partner, Izuku thought. He goes to his ear and presses on the comm. "Hey Jairu, you there?" Izuku asks through the comm as it turns on the other line. "Midoriya." "Yeah, I'm here. How are things going on your side? Jairu asks, on her side. Good, I lost bakugou and I'm chilling by some stairs on the 3rd floor. Did you find Todoroki? Izuku asks, leaning down onto the stairs. Yeah, but Izuku hears Jairu hesitant. But what? What's wrong? Izuku asks. He froze the door to the room he was in solid. I can't open it or break it down without altering him. Really? Izuku asks. Yeah, and it sounds like Todoroki was just talking to Bakugou before something happened since he's trying to call him again, Jairu says. Guess Bakugou hung up on him while looking for me, Izuku thought. Okay, just let me think a bit, Izuku says as he turns off the comm and thinks. He turns to the wall beside him and sees the ice on it. He taps the ice and sees some of it break off from the wall and onto the bottom of the stairs. Okay, the ice Todoroki made when covering the whole building isn't thick and more solid than I thought it'd be, which could mean that he only made the ice thick and solid in the room where the bomb is the same as the rest of the building, or it's the more density. Meaning it'd take some form of force just to go through it. But what? Izuku thought as he thought up ways in breaking the ice, smashing it with enough force to break through the ice and take down the door in one go. But what could do that in a single shot? That was when he realized something. He goes back to the comm and calls Jairu. Okay Jairu, I've got an idea. Think you can follow it? He asks. Sure, what have you got in mind? Jairu asks. What sound can you plug through your speakers? Izuku asks. Just my heartbeat. I can plug my earphone jacks into my speakers and amplify my heartbeat through them. Jairu explains. Can you turn it up to a higher volume? Izuku asks, smirking. Huh. In the comm center with All Might in Class 1A. Hey, who's Midoriya and Jairu TTT talking to? Kirishima says, noticing Izuku and Jairu were talking on screen but couldn't hear what they were talking about. I'm not hearing anything. Is the SS sound broken or SS something? He asks, chattering his teeth as he holds himself while shivering. Everyone else in the comm center was also holding themselves, All Might as well. The reason why was this happening was due to the sudden drop in room temperature thanks to Todoroki's strategy of freezing the entire building, and as a result, nearly freezing the. Oh, I gave each of them a radio so they can talk to their partners along with a map of the building. At least a roll of capture tape. All Might says while holding out a roll of white tape in his large fingers. Warping this around your opponent means that they're captured and are out of the rest of the game. All Might says, confusing the students. Wait. So, there's a 15-minute time limit and the heroes don't even know where the explosive even is? Hagakure asks, holding on to Azui, who was also holding on to her but looked sleepy for some reason. All Might nods. That's right. All Might says. So that means that the heroes are at a huge disadvantage here. Hagakure says, and All Might lets out a loud laugh. Ha! Real heroes have to outwit villains in our day-to-day lives. That's the life of a hero, even when the odds are against us. We fight. All Might say as the students felt inspired by the speech. Now, all together. All Might yells with the students following him. Plus ultra. Mostly everyone yells the school's motto while the ones who didn't either raised their hands along to the cheer or were still holding on to one another for warmth. Aoyama notices something on the screen. Sir, Midoriya is on the move. Aoyama says as everyone turned back to the screen. Back with Izuku. You got that? Izuku asks, he had finished explaining the plan he had in mind. Yeah, got it. Jairu says. Okay, just wait for the signal. Which should be really soon. Izuku says. Gotcha. Good luck. You too. Izuku say and the comms drop. He stands up from the stairs and stretches his arms and legs. Okay, that's enough time for him to look at me. Now it's my turn. He yells before taking up his running stance and blasts off, breaking the ice in his wake. He zooms through the hallways, taking the sharp corners where he ran on the walls to turn those as he zooms up to the 4th level. Just as he runs down a hall, he spots Bakugou coming out of a room, probably looking for him there as he speeds up toward him and slid under his legs but grabs his ankles and sends Bakugou falling face first into the ice-covered floor while Izuku continued to slide until he got back to his feet and was crouching. He looks at Bakugou and saw he was getting up and notices something he was doing that made him smirk. "Sup?" Izuku yells. Bakugou turns and sees him. "Deku." Bakugou roars while turning to face Izuku. "Got scared and came out to face me, nerd." He yells. Izuku shakes his head and stands up, and crosses his arms. "Nah. I was just looking for ya. Since I know I can't wait for you forever. After all, I know you're slow and all." Izuku says with a grin. This causes Bakugou to be infuriated as his palms let off sparks. "Oh, I'm so gonna enjoy blowing you into next week." Bakugou snarls with Izuku looks at him with a raised eyebrow. "First of all, pause." Izuku yells before looking at Bakugou with a serious look as he pulls down the cuff of his gloves. "Second, I'd like to see you try," he says, shifting into his fighting stance. Bakugou snarls more before placing his hands behind him. "Die." Bakugou yells as he blasts himself toward Izuku and prepares a right hook backed with an explosion. Izuku smirks and starts spinning in place while Bakugou soars toward him. "Nope." Izuku yells, and as Bakugou was near him and about to punch Izuku with his attack, Izuku stopped spinning around and hoofed him with a heavy kick into his abdomen, making Bakugou gasp out for air while saliva flew out of his mouth as he sent back flying down the hall. Bakugou rolls a bit on the floor before correcting himself and uses his hands to come to a halt. He was about to get up when he sees a green ball rushing toward him and slamming into his gut once more as he is again sent back into a wall with the ball, grinding into his stomach. Izuku unfolds himself from his ball form and places his hands on the ground and starts performing a barrage of high-speed kicks at Bakugou. Izuku then flips on his hands and sticks out his foot. Spin kick. Izuku yells as he strikes Bakugou on the chin, lifting him off the ground as Izuku uses his speed to get back onto his feet and swing a right hook that had green and blue lighting surging off and around it. Detroit smash. The right connects and Bakugou is forced through the wall behind him and into a room where he rolls across the floor before crashing into the wall in it and stopping there. He groans from the attacks while trying to get back up as he looks to see Izuku coming at him in his ball form. Getting desperate to stop the pain he was experiencing from all the attacks he sustained and to stop Izuku from attacking him further, Bakugou sends a blast at Izuku, who takes it and flips back down the hall before flipping onto his feet and looking at the sandy-ash blonde who was trying to recover his breath. He looks at Izuku, who looked fine apart from some soot that was on some parts of his outfit. What? Bakugou stutters in shock. "How aren't you down? I put my most into that blast." He yells and Izuku looks at him with confusion. "Dude, if you hadn't noticed or forgotten, you're in a building that's frozen and you've been putting your hands onto the ice-covered floor, making your gloves and hands colder than they were before and thus making your explosions weaker than their usual. You're at a disadvantage in this fight, dude, just give up," Izuku says. Bakugou grits his teeth thinking that Izuku was looking down on him. Bstrd. Bakugou roars before he blasts himself toward Izuku once more to blast him with an explosion. Izuku smirks again as he waits for Bakugou to be close enough, and once he was, Izuku leaps over him and looks at him in the air before he lands behind him, and Bakugou slightly gets hit by an invisible barrage of force for a bit before he is sent flying to the side of the room and crashes into the wall. In the comm center with All Might in Class 1A. "Whoa! What happened?" Sato yells. He and the others were shocked and confused upon seeing Bakugou being sent flying by an unknown force. "I don't know. One minute I see Bakugou flying toward Midoriya, the next I see Izuku standing and Bakugou is on the floor by a wall." Mineta yells. Mina and Ochako, on the other hand, weren't as shocked as they had a feeling that Izuku did something. "Aizu did something to Bakugou," Mina says, and everyone else turns to her. "Huh?" Zero utters. "What do you mean he did something?" He asks. What she means is he leaped over bakugou and lands on the other side, and the next thing, bakugou is sent flying into a wall. Deku did something to make that happen. Ochako says, looking at the screen before turning to All Might. All Might, could you rewind to the point where Deku was in the air above bakugou? She asks as All Might blinks. Why yes. Let me rewind the footage and see what happened. All Might says, he goes to the control and rewound the footage to the point where Izuku was in the air. Ah, here is it. He plays the playback and saw nothing that showed any sign that Izuku did something except leap over bakugou. I still don't see anything that showed he did something. Ojiro says. Momo narrows her eyes at the footage as she spots something with Izuku. Wait, All Might, could you slow down the footage to that point? Momo says, and the pro hero turns to her. Why, young Yaoyorozu? All Might asks. That's a glitch that happens with Izuku. Momo says while pointing to the screen, see when he's just in the middle of the air and above bakugou, that's a glitch that happens for a moment. She says, most of the class looks at her for a bit before turning back to the footage and looking at Izuku, just as he was in the middle. They see that Izuku glitches a bit. Hey, there is a glitch. Kaminari says. Yeah, but it looks like the camera barely picked it up. Mineta says. Wonder why the glitch happened. He says. Perhaps if I reduce the playback speed, maybe we can see what young Midoriya did. All Might say, he goes to the control panel and reduces the playback speed to 0.5x, but it wasn't enough as there was nothing to show why the glitch happened. He lowers the speed to 0.10x but still nothing, he lowers it further down to 0.50x but again, nothing. So, he resorted to lowering the speed all the way to 0.100x, the maximum that the footage could go. Ah, this is the highest we can go. Now, let's see what actually happened. He says as he presses the play button. The footage showed Izuku and bakugou in the air, the green light with blue highlight was moving normally while bakugou was frozen in the air. Suddenly Izuku on screen smirks as blue lighting surges from his body and starts sending down a barrage of punches onto bakugou's frozen body, leaving after images with each punch connecting. He then spins around and kicks bakugou's side before spinning back into position and lets out a burst of speed which makes him move forward and land on his feet. The footage returns to normal speed as bakugou is braided by the barrage of punches and is sent flying into the wall by the kick. Everyone was shocked at seeing what had really happened to bakugou. No way did he seriously move so fast that the camera could barely pick it up. Kirishima asks, mouth open in shock. Why yeah, Siro stutters. How fast do you think he had to go to do that? Sato asks. Hell of a fast, Sato says. Dude, Kaminari utters in awe. Did you know that Aizu could go that fast? Mina whispers to Ochako, they were surprised at seeing their friend's speed. Yeah, they knew he was fast but they didn't know he could go that fast. No, I didn't. Did you? Ochako whispers back and Mina just shakes her head. No. Mina whispers, nearly yelling that, as they were thinking back to their youth of Izuku and his speed. I'm surprised that the camera picked that up. Young Midoriya, just how fast are you? All Might thought, staring at the footage in shock, but he quickly gets over it and returns back to the live feed and sees Izuku walking toward bakugou. Back with the 2 moments ago. Izuku turns around and sees bakugou lying on the floor, trying and failing to get back up while coughing out loud. Come on bakugou. Haven't I beaten you enough already? Izuku asks, tapping his foot on the ground as he waits for bakugou to respond to him, but the blonde didn't as he was now kneeling on the floor, as he tries to catch his breath. Seeing this as a call to surrender, Izuku shrugs his shoulders and pulls out the capture tape from his hoodie. Alright, stay still while I tie you up and end this so I can go and help my partner with your partner. Speaking of which. He says while walking toward bakugou as he goes to his comm and calls Jairu. Hey Jairu, you start the prep for the plan, I'm almost done with bakugou here. You'll get my signal to do it. He speaks, not noticing bakugou was gradually getting back up. Listen Deku I dash, Bakugou was saying before he stops upon seeing one of his grenade gauntlets, ha. About time. He yells, altering Izuku who turns to him. Ha. What are you talking about? Izuku asks with confusion as he sees Bakugou start to smirk while cocking back the lever of the gauntlet to let a pull pin spring out. Since you know about my quirk so much Deku, then you have to know that these grenade gauntlets aren't just for show. They've been storing up all my sweat from my hand during this fight and now, it's all loaded up. You've seen what my explosions are like from my hands, now see what one monster will look like. Bakugou says. He had a deranged smirk as he reaches for the pull pin while aiming the gauntlet at Izuku who was blinking. Wait what? Izuku utters. In the comm center. No. He's going too far. All Might had thought, after hearing what Bakugou said, and if it was true, then that. Young Bakugou. Don't release that attack. You'll kill him. All Might yells into the mic that was connected to the building's PA system. Not if he dodges. That was what he heard Bakugou say from his comm. What? Is he really going to do it? Shoji asks, eyes widening in shock, while he had ears on the ends of his. Do what? Ojiro asks, wondering why he and All Might were freaking out. He's going to fire a stored-up attack from those grenades of his to Midoriya to take him out. Shoji says, shocking the others upon hearing what he said. What? Mina and Ochako yell, eyes widening at hearing that as they turn to All Might. All Might, stop the fight. They yell and All Might was about to go out and stop Bakugou but it was too late. Back in the building. Izuku's eyes widen as he spots the barrel of the grenade begin to glow orange. His irises begin to turn blue and glow. Jairu. Now. Izuku yells. Die, you speedy nerd. Bakugou yells, fully pulling out the pin and releasing the attack at Izuku as it travels towards the teen at a high speed, destroying the ice on the floor and pillars. That was until the explosion suddenly slows down to a snail's pace as Izuku looks at Bakugou and shakes his head. Idiot, Izuku could only say before walking over to the frozen Bakugou who had his deranged smirk. Izuku only roll his eyes before he pulls out the capture tape and runs around Bakugou, quickly wrapping his entire body with it and rendering him immobile. Once he had finished with this, Izuku moves to Bakugou's front, looks at him and does a simple flick to the forehead, which actually took Bakugou off from the ground and slowly moved to a wall. Seeing this task done, Izuku turns to the door and runs out, running up to the floor where Jairu was located. With Jairu, she had hooked her earphone jocks to her boots and had blasted out a loud burst of sound to the door as the ice on the door and wall shattered in slow-mo, and the door started to cave into itself with the sound. Izuku runs to the floor, with each of his steps shattering the ice on the ground and walls as he ran through the hallways and up the stairways, leaving his blue lighting in his wake. He reaches the floor and looks around for Jairu and spots her down a hall by the door and he sees the door caving in from her attack. Smirking, he takes up a runner's stance and bolts down the hall before rolling himself into his ball form and speeds down the hall, shattering all the ice around him as he reaches the door and breaks through it, and soars through the room toward the still form of Todoroki as he slams into the teen, causing him to gasp out for air while time returns back to normal. Todoroki falls to the floor, robbed for his breath as he tries to process what happened but he couldn't as a green ball was bouncing off him up and down, keeping him down. Jairu enters the room and sees what was happening to Todoroki. Jairu. If you would. She hears Izuku speak in his ball form, continuing to pummel Todoroki down as she realizes that the bomb was wide open and runs toward it but as she runs to the bomb, Todoroki drops his right hand down to the floor and uses his ice quirk in trying to freeze her legs but she leaps over the ice and toward the bomb and touches it. In the comm center. You did it, All Might whispers, seeing Jairu touch the bomb. They won the trial. The hero team wins. He yells as the siren goes off, singling the end of the trial with the timer having 4:32 to spare. The students in the monitoring room were stunned at what just transpired until one broke the silence. Wow, that was awesome. Kaminari yells, stars in his eyes. I know, right? I didn't think Midoriya would appear in the room where Todoroki was at one moment. How'd he get there that fast? Zero yells. How does the old saying go? The strongest lasts the longest. Tokoyami says, crossing his arms. The rest of the class was gawking out at the speed Izuku displayed while two let out held breaths in relief. This class is intense. Azui says before they felt a huge wind gush blow and they saw All Might not in the room anymore. In the building. Bakugou was on the ground, lying next to a wall that had a big crack in it, in the room where Izuku had tied him in the capture tape as he was processing what had happened and what he just heard. I lost, he thought, thinking about the fight he had with Izuku and how he lost. He thought about it and felt that Izuku was just playing with him. He couldn't land any blows to him except for the ambush, but Izuku countered and landed his own attacks on him, all while playing with him, and felt that he was holding back. Then that means if Deku wanted to, if he wasn't holding back while fighting me, he'd, Bakugou thought, not liking this feeling he was experiencing again. And just as his vision was starting to shake, he feels someone cutting the tape off him and is set up straight. Young Bakugou, are you alright? He hears All Might speaks as he looks up and sees the pro hero kneeling down in front of him, looking at him with worry. Why yeah, Bakugou stutters after a while and All Might lets out a sigh of relief. That's fortune. I was beginning to worry since you weren't answering me originally. All Might says. Bakugou doesn't speak, as he was still out of it. I'll be back to take you to Recovery Girl to get you treated for that head wound. I just need to go and see how the other students are. All Might says before bolting out of the room. Bakugou was confused about what he meant by a head wound. He places his hand on his head before lowering it down to see there was BLD on his glove. Back on the floor where the trio was, upon hearing that they won, Izuku stops jumping on Todoroki and lands on the floor where he unfolds himself out of his ball form and stands and looks at his teammate and sees her on the floor, still touching the bomb. Hey, Jairu. You good? Izuku asks. Jairu just stands up and holds herself as she turns to him. Why yeah, fine. Just chill is all. Jairu says, shivering after feeling the cold room finally as Izuku just chuckles. I can see that. Izuku says. He then looks down at Todoroki, who was still on the floor, trying to regain his breath. He sticks his hand out to the heterochromia team. Hey, good match man, you nearly had us there. He says with a smile. Todoroki looks at him for a bit before scowling and smacks Izuku's hand away from him. Whatever, Todoroki says as he gets up and processes in leaving the room, leaving Izuku standing there in confusion. Geez, what's his deal? Izuku thought, scratching his head while thinking this. Just then, All Might appears in the room. Ah, young Midoriya, young Jairu. Are you two alright? All Might asks. Yeah, we're fine, All Might. Just cold is all. Izuku says, with Jairu quickly nodding. Ah, good. All Might says as he looks at them. I ran into young Todoroki and asked if he was fine, with him saying that he is alright. I just wanted to make sure. Come on, let us get out of here. He says. The two didn't need to be asked twice as they leave the frozen building and walk the monitoring room and were bombarded with questions from the rest of the class as soon as they enter the room. Midoriya, that was awesome. Midoriya. Jairu. You guys killed it. You beat the hell out of Bakugou. Todoroki, you nearly made me go into hibernation. The class bombed them with praises and glares at Todoroki for his stunt, not that he paid any attention to them. Dekuri/Izu. Ochako and Mina run toward Izuku, looking worried. Are you okay? They ask, as Izuku sees their worry and just chuckles. Yeah. I'm fine, girls. Just peachy. Just got a scratch, is all. Izuku says. All Might moves toward the large screen and stands in front of it as he looks at the class continue their chat until he clears his throat, causing them to stop talking and turn their attention to him to begin to discuss the breakdown of the trial. Well, with the results and what we just witnessed. I clear the MVP of this trial is young Jiru. All Might yells. The class looked surprised about Jiru being called the MVP, including said girl as some were. No offense to Jiru, but how'd she get MVP, instead of Midoriya Karo? Azui asks the pro. Valid question. Why did I choose those two instead of one? Who has a guess? All Might asks. Sir, I can tell you why. Momo raises her hand at the request. Go right ahead young Yaoyorozu. All Might yells. Let's talk about the villains first. When Bakugou left Todoroki to guard the bomb, a mistake when the trial is clearly for us to work together to guard it against the heroes. Bakugou also let a personal grudge he has against Midoriya cloud his judgment, and that allowed Midoriya, in turn, to predict that Bakugou would come after him first and only in this test. That allowed Midoriya to make a plan to counter him. He also made the mistake of releasing a large-scale attack like he did in a building covered in ice. If it was more powerful, the whole building could have collapsed in itself. Todoroki also made a critical mistake when he attempted to freeze his opponent when he froze the building. He also encased the bomb in ice, a mistake that could have killed not only himself but everyone else in the blast radius, as the bomb's integrity would fail due to the decrease in temperature. He also crippled his teammate's quirk when he encased the building with his ice, as Bakugou's explosion doesn't seem as powerful as it was during yesterday's quirk test. Now to the hero team, Midoriya made his mistake in letting his fight with Bakugou as long as it was, when he could have simply defeated him and assisted Jiru with Todoroki much early into the fight. Jiru was the only one who remained focused on her task of locating the bomb's location, spotting Todoroki, relaying that information to her teammate, and using an opening to distract Todoroki to let Midoriya come and stop him and allow her to capture the device. Momo stops her speech, looking pleased with herself as the others looked at her in shock at how detailed her explanation was. Izuku thought back and found what she said to be true. She is right, I did let the fight draw out too long. Izuku thought. Yeah, but where's the fun in that? Beating your opponent in record time. That gets boring fast. He hears Sonic's voice speak in his mind. Thinking that he must be watching from inside as he agrees with what he said. True. This girl really does have a good eye, All Might thought while in a similar state of stunned shock. Yes, well, you overlooked a few things. Young Jiru did do what she was recommended in doing in this trial, and while the others did make mistakes, it's still their first time doing this, so there's still time to learn down the line. But, other than that, you nailed it. All Might yells, giving praise to Momo after coughing to cover up the high-pitched tone of his voice before speaking. While everyone was trying to process what she said. One should always start with basics to develop depth of learning. And devote themselves wholeheartedly. That's the only way that you can become a top hero. Momo says while her hands were on her peach. Now, let's move on, shall we? All Might says, as the computer was loading in the next match. Alright. It's Team B versus Team I now. Teams go and get ready. He yells as the two teams prepare for their match. Yes sir. The 4 students say, leaving for a new building to use for their test. 3 hours later. It was the end of the day and the sun was setting. Students were leaving campus and heading home or into the city to do something else. And among those leaving UA, was Bakugou, who looked completely dazed and out of it. He had a roll of bandage wrapped around his forehead and some parts of his head. He was mindlessly walking toward the gate as a gush of wind blows by, making him close his eyes to shield them from dust that was kicked up from the wind. Where do you think you're going? He hears someone speak as he looks around for who was talking but saw no one near him. Up here, idiot, he hears the voice speak again, only it sounded like the person talking was in front of him. He turns to the front and saw no one then, until he looks up and sees Izuku sitting on the gate, looking down at him with a bored look on his face. I'll ask you again, in case you didn't hear me the first time. Where do you think you're going? Izuku asks. Bakugou doesn't say a thing as he just resumes walking toward the gate, that was until Izuku jumped off from where he was sitting and lands in front of him, blocking Bakugou's path. What? Got nothing to say? Izuku asks. What do you want? Bakugou finally speaks. I want to know where you're going. Izuku asks. Home, Bakugou says, and Izuku surprisingly scoffs. Oh really? It looks to me like you're running away. Izuku says, crossing his arms as Bakugou looks at him with focus. What? Bakugou says. Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. You're running away. Izuku says. You've tried to fight against me for 10 years and the majority of that time, you've lost. But that doesn't stop you from coming back and trying to beat me again. So, I want to know. What makes this loss different? He asks. He looks at Bakugou, who remains silent for a bit, and Izuku was getting rather impatient as he starts tapping his foot on the floor. Well? He asks again, and finally, after some more time passes, Bakugou speaks. I lost, Bakugou utters, and Izuku just rolls his eyes. Yeah, that's pretty obvious here, dude. Izuku says. I lost to you when you were playing around. Bakugou says louder as Izuku looks confused. Huh? Izuku says, raising an eyebrow, wondering what he was on about. I tried to give it my all, but I was screwed over by my idiot of a teammate. I tried to beat you with everything I had, but it wasn't enough. You beat me and you were pulling your hits, playing me like the fool during our fight. Bakugou mutters before gritting his teeth. He could tell that. Huh, guess he's more observant than I pegged him for. Izuku thought, surprised that Bakugou noticed. He sees Bakugou tightly clenching his fists to the point where his knuckles were turning white. My all wasn't enough to beat you, even when you were holding back. You were someone I beat when we were younger, but your quirk came in and you became someone I couldn't beat. Everything I tried to do to beat you, you were better. Then, you came first in the exam and in the quirk test yesterday. But, I saw that most of the extras in our class were actually good. I realized that I couldn't beat some in a head-to-head fight, like that icy idiot. Bakugou screams before grabbing onto his hair and pulling it, Damn it, damn it, damn it. He yells, lifting his head up to the sky. Izuku frowns in concern, sure he doesn't hate the guy or liked him either, but he saw that Bakugou was in a bind on this and knew it was his fault. Look, Bakugou dash, Izuku was saying, but Bakugou cuts him off. But, you better listen here, Deku. You better enjoy that victory for yours, 'cause it's going to be the last one between us. I'm gonna get stronger and beat you the next time we fight one another. I'll beat you even if you're holding back or going all out. That, I can promise you. Bakugou says, with a newfound look of determination on his face as he stares at Izuku. Izuku looks at him for a bit before he finds himself smirking. Alright, you're on. Let's go on a clean slate then, all the previous losses/wins from the past are out the window. Just you and me. Deal? Izuku asks, sticking out his fist toward Bakugou, who looks at the fist for a bit before he smirks and processes bumping his fist onto Izuku's. Deal, but you better be ready to cry when you lose against me next time, Deku. Bakugou says, and Izuku just laughs. Funny, I was going to say that to you when I beat you. Izuku says. The two's fists separate as the wind started to blow by, both staring each one down with determination and confidence. This would be the beginning of many rivalries in their lives. There you are. And the moment was ruined by the loud yell of All Might, who was rushing from the main campus as he rushed toward Bakugou, passing Izuku at speeds that almost knocked him over. All Might approached Bakugou and places his hands onto his shoulders. Young Bakugou. You must not let this defeat get to you. Pride is something great to have as a pro, but you still have much to learn still. All Might was saying his inspirational speech. Hey, All Might. All Might turns to Izuku, all is good with him, I sorted him out. He says, causing the pro hero to be confused. All Might says. Let me go, All Might, I already got my resolve. I now know that Deku's my rival, one I have to beat first before going after you. Just you wait, I'll beat Deku and then I'll surpass you and be more famous than you are. Bakugou says as he removes All Might's hands from his shoulders and starts walking away from the two, leaving All Might utterly confused. Well, that was something, All Might says, scratching his head in confusion, wondering what happened between the two. He turns to Izuku. Did you really help him, young Midoriya? He asks. Yep, I had a feeling that he needed to vent and gain something from it, so I tracked him and spoke with him. Surprisingly calm too, I was expecting he'd try to blow me up. Izuku says. Really? All Might says and Izuku nods. Man, what are teenagers these days? They're solving their own issues that fast. He thought. Yep, now can I go back to class? I left my bag back there when I chased after him. Izuku says. Yes. You can. All Might says. Sweet. See you tomorrow. Izuku says before he bolts away, disappearing in a green blur. Leaving All Might to sigh. Man, being a teacher is harder than I thought. All Might says as he runs his hand through his hair and stands there at the gate, in thought. Date, time, location, unknown. In an unknown location. One guy was looking at the television as the reporter was reporting on how All Might was teaching the next generation of heroes at UA. He scoffs. Heroes, all they do is save people and this society thinks that they're safe, especially with this symbol of peace protecting them. He scoffs as he brings out a picture of All Might. I'll show how fragile the sense of safety that society made when All Might is died. He said as the picture started to turn into dust while someone else was in front of him, cleaning a glass with a cloth. As a camera zooms in on this. Static. Sir, we managed to track down that EMP blast that happened a few months ago. A man. Dressed in tactical gear walked up to an older man who was dressed in a black military officer outfit with a red band on his right arm. Excellent. The older man says, taking the tablet that the younger man had and looks over its contents, did you locate where it happened? He asks. Yes sir, it happened in Mizutofu, a small city with Tokyo. The blast happened roughly around 1330, that was what the orbit satellites said before they went down due to the blast striking them. The younger man says as the older man frowns at the name of the city. Mizutofu? Isn't that the city where UA is? The older man asks himself, thinking about it. Do you think they could be attempting a strike, sir? The younger man asks as the older man just shakes his head. Highly unlikely, cadet. It's a hero school, I doubt they plan something like this, but just in case, the older man utters, thinking about what he was thinking about a bit more. Sir. The younger man calls to his boss who looks at him. Call Agent Rouge and have her meet me in my office in 10 minutes. She has a mission to do. The older man says as he walks away while the younger man nods and salutes him before he too walked away. Agent Rouge, report to the commander's office in 10. Repeat, Agent Rouge, please report to the commander's office in 10 minutes. The announcement rang and a feminine voice sighs. And just as I was finally getting my tan start, the voice utters with anger in her tone. She sighs again, knowing that she couldn't dodge this time since the commander had requested her and knew he didn't like to be waited upon. Guess another mission awaits, she says as she gets from her yard chair and starts putting on her clothes as the camera zooms out from her and reveals a large battleship that was in the air, above the cloud. It was the next day and we find our heroes, Izuku, Ochako, and Mina at UA, ready to head into the school to start their day. Well, they would be if it wasn't for what was in front of them. The trio blink in confusion as they see a large crowd of reporters and news anchors surrounding the U.High entrance, nearly asking every student that was trying to walk into the campus, asking them various questions that were related to All Might as a teacher and how was he doing. Well, this is something I wasn't expecting on a Wednesday morning, Izuku says, with a sweat drop as the two girls could only nod. The media can be scary just to get a scoop, Mina says, also with a sweat drop. And we have to go through them to get to class. Ochako says, with a sweat drop of her own. The other two then realize that Ochako was correct, about having to go through the crowd. Ah, man. Izuku says, not liking that, but they had to if they wanted to make it to class since this was the only way to get onto the campus. So, the three forced their way through the reporters while receiving a barrage of questions, with them having to answer some when they saw the reporter who was asking the question wouldn't let them go. They apologized and said that they had to get to class. Izuku then hears someone going into a long speech and turns to see Ida talking to a few reporters, making said speech instead for a simple answer since he could see the reporter interviewing him was looking disinterested in his speech. He chuckles and continues pushing through the crowd, where, they eventually make it through the crowd of reporters. In the Class 1A homeroom, the students were chatting amongst themselves on various topics as Mr. Aizawa entered the classroom, causing the students to quiet down as he walked toward the podium, with a few sheets of paper in hand and stops at the podium and looks at them. Alright. Now, let's get down to business. I viewed your combat training yesterday. Decent work, I must say. Aizawa says. I reviewed your results individually and I made some points and actions you all did that need to be discussed. He says before turning to Bakugou. Bakugou, you're talented and skilled. But you can't go solo in a team-based exercise, you need to have a commutation with your teammate, if not, it will ruin your chances to be victorious. That's why Todoroki froze the building and cut your quirk power in half. Don't go temperamentally, rush off and take on your opponents alone, that's how you get yourself killed. Remember that next time. He says as Bakugou just clicks his tongue. Yeah, whatever, Bakugou mutters while turning away from Aizawa. Speaking of which, Todoroki, that was a risky move you pulled. Freezing the entire building like that. Not only did you freeze the building solid and crippled your partner's quirk's power outcome, but you also severely damaged the building's infrastructure and foundations. Had the foundations snapped, the building would have collapsed on top of you all, severely injuring or even killing you. Think of that next time. Aizawa says. Todoroki frowns a bit before he nods. Aizawa then turns to Jairu. Jairu, nice work. You used your quirk accordingly and relayed information to your partner, giving the location of the bomb and assisting for the win. Good work. Aizawa says. Jairu smiles as she nods. The teacher then turns to Izuku. Midoriya. Aizawa says as Izuku looks at him with full attention. You're skilled and definitely resourceful with your quirk. That's good to have when you're a pro, but you can't be messing around with your opponents in a battle like you did with Bakugou in the training. In real-life battles with villains, you need to be serious and take out your opponents as quickly as you possibly can, don't waste time as people die if you're a second late. I'm sure that's won't a problem for you. He says and Izuku nods, with a serious expression. Yes sir. Izuku says. Aizawa nods as he goes on to the others to give them feedback on their mistakes. Sonic appears above Izuku and looks at him with a curious look. You are going to continue to mess around with people you fight, right? Sonic asks, as Izuku just looks at him with a smirk. Of course man. Why would I stop doing that when it's fun to do? Izuku thought and Sonic smirked as well. Aizawa continues giving the others his feedback on their performances in their combat training with them nodding, understanding what to do next time and what to change. Eventually, he finishes his breakdown and decides to move forward with the agenda. Okay, with that. Let's get due to business, shall we? Aizawa says, catching the class's attention. Our first task will decide your future. He says and the class tense up. Is it another quirk test? The majority of the class thought, wondering if they were going to do something that they needed to stay in class. You all need to pick a class representative. Aizawa says, with the class relaxing at that. Oh good. Just normal school stuff, the class sighed in relief. Pick me, guys. I wanna be class rep. Kirishima eagerly yells, with his hands up in the air. I'll take it. Kaminari yells with his hand raised. Nah yeah, you're gonna need me. Jiru says with her hand raised as well. Someone with style would be B-. I'm totally the right pick. Mina yells, unknowingly cutting off Aoyama, who just looks at her with a strained smile. Hey, let me do it. I could lead these bunch of extras. Bakugou shouts, his eyes white in aggression as he shoots out of his seat. Pick me. I'll make a rule that the girls in class have to wear skirts that are 3 centimeters shorter. Mineta shouts, his eyes wide with drool dripping from the corner of his mouth as the girls all turn and glare at him. Pervert. The girls yell before. All punch him across the face, sending him flying to the front of the class where he faceplants onto the wall and slides down to the floor, and lies there, knocked down while Aizawa ignores him. Looks like everyone wants to be class rep, Izuku thought, as he sees everyone raising their hands, wanting to be picked to be class rep. He even sees Mina and Ochako raising their hands. He chuckles and kicks back in his seat. Don't you want to be this class rep? Sonic asks and Izuku just shakes his head. Nah, I'm good. Besides, I'm not the leading type of guy, you know. I'm more for the, goes with the wind. Izuku thought. Sonic thought for a bit before he nods at his words and kicks back in the air like he was lounging on a yard chair. I feel ya. Sonic says. The yelling and pleads for being the class representative continue for a bit as Ida stands up from his seat and looks at everyone making the noise. Silence everyone. Please. Everyone stopped and turned to Ida. A class representative's duty is to lead others. That's not something that anyone can do. You must first have the trust of everyone in the classroom. Therefore, the most logical is to fill the position with democracy. We will hold an election to choose our leader. Ida says with his hand raised high in the air as his body shakes. The class realizes what he was trying to do. It's pretty obvious that you want us to vote for you. The class thought. Is this really the best idea? Kaminari asks as Tsuyu nods. We've only known each other a few days. How do we know who can we trust? Tsuyu asks with a finger on her chin. Besides, everyone will vote for themselves. Kirishima says, pointing out the one big flaw in Ida's suggestion. Most people will. But whoever receives the most votes is the one who is most suited for the job. It's that best way, right sir? Ida asks while turning to Aizawa, who had gotten in his sleeping bag during all the ruckus. Aizawa just turns to him with a flat look before shrugging his shoulders. Do what you want. Just decide before my nap's over. Aizawa tiredly says before falling onto the floor and falls fast asleep. Thank you for your trust. Ida says while the rest of the class just looks at Mr. Aizawa. Is this guy really a pro hero? They thought as sweat drops appear at the sides of their heads. Ida then pulls out some paper and handed the paper to everyone for them to write down the name of the person they want as their class representative, and after getting their paper, the class started thinking and writing down the name of the person they wanted. Izuku looks around and started thinking about who should he vote for. A person who fits being a leader. Izuku thought about who'd he vote for until he looks around one more time and sees someone and realizes who he wants to be the class representative. He smiled and writes down that person's name on his piece of paper and hands his vote into the ballot. After everyone placed their vote on the ballot, the votes were counted and the results were announced to the class on the board. Election results. Izuku Midoriya, 5. Momo Yaoyorozu, 3. Rest, 1 or 0. Disqualified, Minoru Mineta. What the what? How'd I get 5 votes? Izuku yells. He was surprised that he had a vote but was shocked to see 5. Bakugou slams his hands onto his desk as he turns to the rest of the class. Okay, you dumb asses. Who voted for Deku? Bakugou asked, clearly mad about the loss. What? Did you honestly think that anyone was going to vote for you? Shiro asks with a grin. While Bakugou was yelling at the black-haired kid, Izuku scratches his head in confusion. How did he get 5 votes and who voted for him? Who the heck voted for me? Izuku thought, confused by how he won as Sonic looks around and spots something that makes him chuckle. "I think I know who voted for you, bud," Sonic says, making Izuku stop scratching his head and look at him. "Huh?" Izuku says. Sonic just points to the other side for the class and Izuku looks at the side and sees Ochako and Mina casually whistling, trying to look innocent, but Izuku could see through their acts as he realizes they voted for him. "Oh, you two little minxes. I'm going to get you two back for this," he thought as he grins a little. He was so going to remember this. Ida was sitting in his chair in a state of shock. He couldn't believe that he got 0 votes. 0 votes. I feared that this might happen. But I can't argue with the system that I suggested, Ida says to himself while the others were looking at him. "So, you voted for someone else, huh?" Momo asked. "But you knew that it was best to vote for yourself, huh? Bummer. What were you trying to prove here, Ida?" Sato asks as Ida just doesn't say a thing and accepts the loss. After the results were shown, Izuku and Momo were standing next to each other in front of the class. "Alright, our class rep is Midoriya. With Yaoyorozu as our vice republic," Aizawa announces while still on the floor. The class claps their hands to the two as Momo looks at Izuku. "I'm glad that I know that is stressful for you to be in a position, but I know you can do it." Momo whispers to Izuku, who turns to her and smiles. "Thanks. Didn't think we'd be here. Considering I don't think that I'm the leader type." Izuku whispers, cracking a sheepish smile. "Well, I do think you can be a leader. Considering I voted for you." Momo whispers and Izuku looks at her with a surprised look. "Really? You voted for me?" Izuku asks and Momo nods. "Yes," Momo says. Izuku looks at her for a bit before he cracks a smile at her. "Cool. Thanks, Momo." Izuku whispers as the girl smiles and nods at him. "No problem, Izuku." Momo says as Aizawa read them the conditions of being a class representative and vice rep. A few hours later. Lunchtime. Some time passes and it was now lunchtime, where we see Izuku, Mina, and Ochako together in the cafeteria, eating their lunches. Joining them were also Momo and Ida at their table. "Man, it's so crowded in here," Ochako says while munching on some rice from her bowl. "You said it. I know we haven't been here long, but every time we're here, there's hardly any free tables for us to sit at," Mina says, as she looks around the cafeteria and sees how packed it was while seeing students in line for their meals. "Well, the reason behind that is because all 3 courses, support, management, and heroics, all share the same cafeteria," Momo explains to the two while she ate a slice from a Chicago-style large deep dish pizza. "That's right. The school board does this to save time instead of doing each course having their own break and such," Ida says, taking a bite of his curry and rice. Ochako nods, understanding the reason why the cafeteria now. "Oh, okay. I guess that makes sense," Ochako says as she takes a bit of her rice and eats it as she's "Man, this rice is so yummy," she says, delighted by it. And the others could agree with her. Izuku was the only one who wasn't speaking or eating, even though he had a plate filled with chili dogs as he was in deep thought over his new position as the class representative. "I need to figure out a way to not be the class representative. I don't like the work it brings," Izuku thought, thinking of ways to deal with the position. Sonic was there with him, floating in the air. "You could just quit, you know," Sonic suggests as Izuku just looks at him. "Yeah, I could, but that just seems a bit crappy to do that when there are people who voted for me," Izuku thought. Sonic thinks about that and couldn't help but agree. "Yeah. And speaking for people voting for you, there's still the 2 other votes you had and don't know who were they from," Sonic says, causing Izuku's intrigue to peak as he looks up at him. "Yeah, you're right," Izuku thought as he thinks about his problem a bit longer. Izukuin. Izukuin. Izuku's thoughts were cut off when he hears someone calling out to him, he blinks and sees the others looking at him. Huh? Izuku utters, confused by their stares. What? He asks. Are you okay, Midori? We've been calling you for a while but you weren't responding to us. Mina says as Izuku blinks again and understood what was happening. Oh right, sorry about that. I was just thinking about the whole class rep thing. Izuku says. What makes you say that? Ochako asks and Izuku just shrugs his shoulders. I don't think that I should be the one that leads the class. I'm not that type of guy. Izuku says while he takes one of the chili dogs from his plate and starts eating it. The others blink at him before realizing his issue. They felt like he was insecure about his new position. Oh, that. You'll do okay. Ochako says as Mina agrees. Yeah, you will. Mina says. You'll be great at it. Ida says. Izuku looks at them with a raised eyebrow. Okay, I understand where the girls are coming from. But what makes you think that, Ida? Izuku asks, looking at the tall boy who turns to him. It's your quick thinking and the ability to handle things under pressure. I think those traits make you a worthy leader, and not to mention the strength and speed you possess. You are my better in speed. Ida says, and Izuku was surprised from hearing that from him. His surprise grows at what he said. Wait, you're one of the 5 who voted for me? Izuku asks as Ida nods. Yes. Ida admits as the others look surprised. Wow, that's a surprise. Mina says. Yeah, didn't you want to be the rep, Ida? I mean, you sure do look the part, with the glasses and the stiff attitude and all. Ochako bluntly says as everyone else minus Ida turn to her with sweat drops. Oka-chan, you know that doesn't work like that. Momo says as Ochako looks at her and blinks before realizing what she said. Oh, really? Silly me. Ochako says as she bonks herself on her head and sticks her tongue out to the side. Everyone looks at this and their previous sweat drop grew in size. Airhead much, the others thought. Wanting a job and performing well at it are two different things. I know that much from observing my family's hero agency most of my life. Ida says before he takes a sip of his OJ as he realizes what he just spilled out to the others. The others look at him in confusion at the mention of a hero agency while Izuku's eyes widen from him finally connecting the dots regarding Ida. Wait, now I figured it out. You're an Ida. You're part of a legacy family. The Turbo Hero family. Izuku yells, making Ida's eyes widen as he turns to Izuku and stares at him in shock. How did you figure that I was part of a legacy family? Ida asks as Mina snorts. Midori here, been a hero geek since we were kids. Anything hero related, he knows it all. He's the one guy you go to on that. Mina says and Ochako nods. Yep, he's a big nerd to All Might. He has posters and other merch of him in his room at his house. Even sleeps in All Might PJs still. Ochako says as she and Mina giggle. The others snicker or giggle softly while Izuku's eyebrow twitches from the snicks and giggles coming from his friends and classmates, especially Mina and Ochako since they said they'd never tell another living soul about that. He then suddenly smirks, 2 could play that game. Says the girls who not only have posters of Midnight and 13 on the walls for their bedrooms at home but also have their merch and still sleep with plushies of Dash, Izuku was saying but got cut off by Mina and Ochako who had their hands over his mouth and looked pale and frightened by what he was about to say. You swore you'd never tell anyone about that. The 2 girls yell loudly, causing everyone in the cafeteria to turn to their table in confusion, wondering what that was about as they blush from embarrassment while Izuku just removes their hands from his mouth. You fired the first shots when you told them about my room, so I had to retaliate. Izuku says, smirking at the 2 who just shyly sit back down to their seats, knowing they've been had. Izuku then turns to Ida. So, Ida, about your family's hero agency? He asks as Ida blinks before realizing what he was saying. Ah yes, of course. As you've figured out, I am from the Ida family. My family's been heroes for generations, since the early days of the dawn of quirks. There has been at least one Ida in the past 3 generations. I'm sure you all know for the turbo hero, Ingenium. Ida asks and Izuku instantly nods, with his fanboy side coming out. Sure do. He's an extremely popular hero who's based in the western district of Tokyo. He has 65 sidekicks currently signed to his agency. Izuku says with a smile before he stops as his mind clicks onto something while looking at Ida with a mildly shocked expression. Wait, don't tell he says as the girls look at him in confusion while Momo gasps, coming to the same conclusion that Izuku had as Ida grins. That's right. He is my older brother. Ida loudly and proudly proclaims as Mina and Ochako were shocked at this reveal. What? No way. Mina yells. Your family's super famous. Ochako yells, in shock as Ida pushes his glasses up. Ingenium is an unmatched commander who honors the hero code. Ida says, as he looks at the others and has a proud smile on his face, as the second Ida-san, I strive to be just like him. But, I feel like it's too soon for me to be in the leadership role. But you Midoriya. It fits you perfectly. You were about to figure out what the judges were looking for in the exam and proved in the combat training how resourceful you can be. He says while looking at Izuku as he said that before seeing everyone looking at him. What? Is there something wrong? He asks, thinking that there was something wrong as the 4 shake their heads. I think that's the first time you've ever smiled in front of us, dude. Izuku says as the others nod. Yeah, I think so too. Ochako says. It suits you. You should do it more Ida. Mina says, smiling as well with Momo nodding along. Ida raises one of his brows at in them. What? What are you all talking about? I smile all the time. Ida says, and this causes the girls to giggle at his confusion while Izuku just chuckles a little. Wow, Ida's got an amazing reason to be a hero. Kind of like mine really. Izuku thought as Sonic floats down next to him and nods, looking at Ida who was still confused by why were the others giggling. That's some goal to live to. I starting to like this guy more. Well when he's not a stick in the mud. Sonic says and Izuku couldn't help but agree with the ghostly hedgehog as he nods. True. Izuku thought. He sees that the others had stopped giggling and he decides to ask for help in his predicament. Hey guys, about this class rep thing, I dash. Ring. Izuku was cut off when a loud alarm ran throughout the school, causing them and everyone else to stop what they were doing and look at the alarm in confusion while the third years looked shocked and scared. What the? What's that? Izuku asks. Warning, this is a level 3 security breach. Repeat, this is a level 3 security breach. All students must evacuate in an orderly fashion. What? No way. One of the third years that was sitting next to their table yells, in shock, causing the teens to turn at him. Excuse me. What is a level 3 security breach? Momo asks this third year who turns to them. That means someone somehow broke into the campus through the school's barrier. This hasn't happened before in my 3 years here. We should get going. The third year yells before getting up from his seat and booking it toward the nearest exit. Soon, everyone else in the cafeteria started rushing toward the nearest exits as the kid sees this and knew they had to as well. Come on. We've got to get going too. Izuku yells and the others couldn't be asked twice as they book it toward the closest exit to them. But upon entering said exit, they and every student that was in the cafeteria were squished in the hall as they were trying to leave the building while some were getting trampled by some of them. Ow! Ochako cries out, as she was getting crushed in between 2 larger students than her. She pushes out of them to get some room to breathe. This is a total mob now. She yells. Everyone was quick to react to the altar. As I expected from UA, but this is getting out of hand. Ida yells. Why yeah, people do tend to panic when chaos springs up. Momo yells. What caused all this panic? Mina yells as she finds herself getting squished. The panic's got to be out. Who's closest to the window? Izuku asks. I am. Ida yells as he pushes his way to the window to have a look as to who was the cause of this. He looked and saw. It's the press that was outside. Ida yells, seeing the press who were at the gate in the morning trying to get into the building as Aizawa and present Mike block them from entering into it. All we want is All Might. He's here somewhere. A female reporter yells to the pros. I said to stay off the school ground. Present Mike says, not having it today with the media. Just give us one comment and we'll leave. A cameraman says. I know how you people work. Give you an inch and you'll want a mile. Aizawa says, glaring at the news crews. Present Mike then went to his ear. They are trespassing, so that makes them villains. Why don't we just beat them up? Mike asks, really wanting to use his quirk on the press to get them out of the campus. Don't even think about it. Unless you want your name to be dragged through the mud. Let's wait for the cops. Aizawa whispers back to the DJ, understanding his friend's announcement of the press. Ida, what do you see? Izuku asks. It's just the media. They entered the school grounds somehow. Ida replies, causing the others to be shocked. What? So there aren't villains at all? Momo asks as Ida looks back to the window to see if there were any and he found none. No, I'm afraid not. Ida yells. Yeah, but the rest don't know. Ochako yells, seeing the rest of the students were still panicking and were none the wiser. How do we tell them that it's not? Mina asks. Sonic floats above the crowd, and looks around the hall before spotting a pipe over the door. Yo! Izuku! Sonic yells, and Izuku looks up at him. Yeah. Izuku thought as Sonic points to the door. Look up at that door. Sonic yells, Izuku follows where his ghostly friend was pointing and sees the door. See that pipe above it? You thinking what I'm thinking, bud? He asks as Izuku thought about what he could be thinking, before getting an idea of it. Yeah, I see it and I got an idea. Izuku thought before turning his head toward the others. Guys, I have an idea. He yells, getting the attention of the rest as he looks at. Ochako, I need you to take Ida and my gravity away and make us float when we get close to you. Izuku yells before he turns to Ida. Ida, you'll throw me to that door and I'll gain everyone's attention. He yells out. The two hear this and nod, with serious expressions. Oh okay, right. The two yell back. Izuku and Ida start pushing their way through everyone, making toward Ochako as she stretched her hand out to them while trying to push closer to them. The two continue pushing through the mob, getting closer to her as they stick their hands to Ohako as she was being pushed back, as she was sticking her hands out to them, but thanks to the people who were shoving into her, she was pushed back and misses. Ochako grits her teeth as she pushes through the crowd a little bit more and reaches close enough to smack the pair's stretched out hands and take away their gravity. Feeling light, the two jump in the air and float above the unaware mob as they barely turn toward the exit. Izuku curls up into his ball form. Ready? Izuku asks as Ida nods and grabs him. Yes. Ida says. The glasses-wearing teen looks at the door and toward the piping and takes aim, and just as he was about to throw Izuku. Wait. The two stop as they look down and see Momo looking up at them while holding something in her hands. Here. Use this to draw everyone's attention. She yells before throwing the item up to them. Ida catches it and sees it was a megaphone. The two look down at Momo and nod at her. Thanks, Momo. Izuku yells at her before he takes the megaphone and holds it close to his chest as he curls back into his ball form. Okay, Ida, now. He yells, and Ida couldn't be asked twice as he throws Izuku toward the door. The speedster soars over the mob while spinning in the air as some of his classmates spot this while some from the other courses spot him. Is that Izuku? Miles yells before he gets squished by more students. Eventually, Izuku reaches the door as he slams into the wall above it, back first and uncurls from his ball form, and grabs onto the pipe as he won't float away. He looks at the mob in front of him and grabs the megaphone. Okay, let's get everyone's attention. Izuku thought. He turns the megaphone on and places it near his mouth, and takes a deep breath before. Yo! Will everyone be quiet and listen? Izuku shouts, causing feedback from the megaphone, which made the students close their eyes from the noise before the noise dissipates as they look at the door and see Izuku, with the megaphone in hand and looking at them with a serious expression. It's just the reporters from the morning outside. There's nothing to worry about or panic over. Everything's fine, everyone. He shouts as his voice echoes through the hallway. Everyone looks at him. People, we are UA students. We need to keep calm and show that we're the best. So, we must remain calm. I mean, look around, you're shoving people down to the floor and trampling them. You could get someone seriously hurt or even killed. We have to be calm and help each other out. Not go all purge mode. Izuku shouts his piece to them as the students were stunned by his words and they started to calm down while others began to feel embarrassed by the way they were acting during this crisis. Hey, look. It's the police. One student yells as they hear sirens coming from a distance. Izuku sighs as he lets go of the pipe and slowly floats down to the ground. Outside, the police started to come toward the school, causing the reporters and news crews to stop as they turned to the gate. Present Mike smiles, hearing backup coming. That's a wrap. Get these dudes out of our station. Present Mike yells, using his quirk to make his point clear to the trespassers. Soon, the police arrived and started escorting the trespassers off grounds. After that whole fiasco, the students were able to return to their classroom where we see Class 1A in theirs, with Izuku and Momo standing in front of the class, by the podium. Ready, class rep? Momo asks Izuku in a professional tone, who nods. Why, yeah. Izuku says, a little bit nervous. He looks at everyone and was getting a bit nervous until he sees Sonic up above, looking at him and smiling at him while giving him a thumbs up. Izuku smiles and takes in a deep breath as he looks at everyone with a calm expression. Hi everyone. I have an announcement to make. I want to thank those who voted for me to be the class rep. It was nice for you to think I'm suited for this. But I feel that this position is a bit much for me to handle. So I decided, with Momo's consideration, to SWCH positions. Meaning, she's now the class rep while I'll be the vice. Izuku says and the class looks surprised by this announcement. Are you about this, Midoriya? Ida asks as Izuku nods while looking at him. Yeah, I'm sure of this, Ida. Like I said, I really don't like the position as a class rep, the main leader, but I like the sound of a de facto leader, you know. Plus, I'll be helping her out with the hard tasks and she'll handle the rest. Izuku says, with a grin at the sound of the position he was now in. He turns to Momo and smiles. So, Miss Class Rep, the stage is all yours. He says, taking a step from the podium as Momo smiles at him. Thank you, Izuku. Momo says, she steps to the podium and looks at the others. Okay everyone, let's get down to business with the rules and announce the class officers. She says as the class got confused by what she said. Yawamo. What class officers? Jairu asks. Right. Izuku and I talked after the crisis from the break and discussed that we'd need more help managing things in the class and maintaining order. So, we discussed and found that we'll need class officers, people who will be our eyes and ears in class should we not be here. And, after discussing who suits this position best, we came to the conclusion on who. So we name Ochako Yururak and Tenya Ida as the class officers of Class 1A. She says. Ida and Ochako were stunned by this announcement as they were nominated for this position. Are you about this, you two? Ida asks, stunned by this as he sees the two reps nod. Yes, you two helped me out so I could get everyone's attention. Plus, you were the one who saw the media outside. Izuku says with a smile, while Momo was also smiling. Ida couldn't believe that they trusted him with this as he started smiling as well. Thank you. I'm honored by this opportunity. Ida says as he bows at a perfect 90-degree angle. Yeah, thanks, you guys. Ochako cheers with a bright smile. Mina on the other hand pouts. Hey. How come Okachan gets to be a class officer while I don't? How come? Mina whines. Izuku just turns to her with a flat look. Mina, I know you too well. You'll most likely slack off during your work or dodge the meetings. Izuku says. Mina opens her mouth to say something but doesn't as she knows she was caught. She pouts and sits down in her seat. Darn it, Mina mutters, crossing her arms as the class laughs. But then, Aizawa clears his throat, making them look at him and see he was in his sleeping bag, looking at the two reps. If you're done messing around, we've still got things to do. Aizawa says, giving them a stern look to finish this. All right. Sorry sir. Momo stutters as she quickly resumes the program. Outside by the school's entrance, Nizu, recovery girl, Midnight, and another teacher were standing at the gate, but it was destroyed as the remains were just dust and crumbles. How were ordinary members of the press able to bypass our security systems? Nizu asks with his hands in his pockets. No clue, none of the reporters or cameramen had quirks that are capable of doing this. Midnight says. Someone else must have been behind this. A villain was actually able to infiltrate our school. But was this a show of power? A declaration for war? Nizu asks, looking at the destroyed gate, or warning. Later that day. Today's training will be a little different. You'll have 4 instructors. I, All Might, and another facility member will be keeping tabs on you. Aizawa says, out of his sleeping bag as he looks at the class. The students were surprised by this move. No surprise for All Might will be there, but 3 pros teaching one class at the same time was something else. 4 pros. Is that because of the break-in? Izuku thought as Sonic shrugs his shoulders, floating next to him. Maybe, Sonic says as Zero raises his hand. What kind of training is this? Zero asks. Aizawa just pulls out a card with rescue. On it. Rescue. You'll be dealing with natural disasters, shipwrecks, and stuff like that. Aizawa says, and this gets the class excited about more heroic training. Disasters, huh? Sounds like we're in for a big workout, huh? Kaminari says as the other students agreed. Totally. Mina yells with excitement. Real hero stuff. This is what separates the men from the boys. I'm shaking with excitement. Kirishima says, punching his fist into his palm. Finally, just to show how good I am in water. Ribbit, Azui said. Guys, I'm not finished yet. Aizawa says, causing the class to be quiet. What you wear in this exercise is up to you. I know you're excited about costumes. He says as he presses a button on his remote and the walls slowly shot out the cases that the students' hero outfits were in. But keep in mind that you haven't gotten used to them yet. And they might limit your abilities. This special training is at an off-campus facility. So we'll be taking a bus to get there. Aizawa says, and the class gets up from their seats and heads over to the wall to go and get their cases and get changed and ready for the trip. Rescue training. Izuku thought with a determined expression on his face, I've been waiting for this. It'll bring me one step closer to being the kind of hero he is. I'll do my best. Izuku thought as grabs his case and heads out to the locker room to go and get changed. Outside of the campus. Izuku was standing outside in his hero outfit, but he fitting on a new addition he added to the outfit on his head. Hey, Midori. Izuku turns and sees Mina and Ochako, in their hero outfits, coming toward him. Oh, hey girls. What's up? Izuku asks. Nothing much. We were coming to you when you saw you messing around with your head. Ochako says as Mina nods as they see what was on his head. Yeah, what are those for? Mina asks, pointing to what was around Izuku's head. Oh, right. Izuku says as he takes off what was on his head and shows them it was a pair of vintage motorcycle goggles that had black lenses. These are for me to see clear while I run, since the wind does get into my eyes and in case it rains. He explains. Oh, that's cool. But why do they look so retro? Ochako asks, looking at the goggles. They're not really that old. They're in fact, high-tech. Since they have this built-in display that shows me how fast I'm going and what direction I'm going. Plus there are some other features but I don't know what they are yet. Izuku says as he fits the goggles back onto his head. Oh, wow. That sounds really cool. Mina says, looking at the goggles, you know who made them? She asks and Izuku just shrugs his shoulders. Don't know. All I know is it was made by someone who's in the support course. Izuku says. Suddenly, a loud whistle blew through the air as the class turned and see Ida with a whistle in his mouth, standing near the bus they were going to take. Alright Class 1A. Using your seat number, form 2 neat lines and enter the bus. Ida says before blowing his whistle again, to get the class into said lines. The others watch on with sweat drops on their heads. I see he's taking his class officer role into high gear. The trio turn and see Momo walk up to them, watching Ida as she had a sweat drop on the side of her head. Yeah. The guy seriously needs to learn how to chill. Izuku says as Momo giggles and turns to him with a smirk. Are you going to make it your mission to do that? Momo asks, as Izuku thinks about it and he too smirks. Maybe, Izuku says, with a sly tone. On the bus. Class A were in their seats but due to the different seat plan, Ida's system was thrown out of whack. He was sitting next to Mina as he looked to the floor in shame. The bus's open layout ruined my boarding strategy, Ida says, as a depressed aura appears around him. You really need to calm. Mina says as she pats the armor-wearing teen on his back. Izuku was sitting next to Tsuyu and Kirishima, and he was busy chuckling at this sight, finding it a bit funny. If we're pointing out the obvious that there's something I want to say. About you actually. Tsuyu says as she turns to Izuku who looks at her with a raised eyebrow. About me. What's on your mind Azui? Izuku asks. I told you to call Tsu. Azui, Tsu says. Sure, Tsu. What's up? Izuku asks. That quirk of yours. How is it when you're running? Tsu asks with a smile as Izuku was caught off guard by the question, he wasn't expecting that kind of question from her. Oh yeah, I've been thinking about that too. How does it feel when you're running man? At high speed. Kirishima says, smiling as Izuku looks stunned by this. Wow, I wasn't expecting a question like that. How do I explain it? Izuku asks himself, trying to find the right words to say. Just, say what you feel while you run. Tsu says. Izuku. Okay. It feels like there's nothing yet it feels like everything, Izuku says as everyone was confused by that. Huh. Kaminari utters, with a raised eyebrow. What do you mean? He asks, confused by that as Izuku sighs and looks up to the roof. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 4. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Pixel's fanbook on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video till then goodbye.